Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. Everyone's back at the parking lot. The stoke is high. You're talking fitness, progression, tech, racing. Everyone's having fun. You're talking bikes. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you?
Danny, I am doing so good, man. How are you doing?
I am also doing very well. Thank you.
All right, then.
You need to elaborate a little bit more. You're so concerned about asking me how I am that you didn't give any detail. Usually you go right into some detail on why you're so good or why you're so depressed because the company's going bankrupt or why you're doing so well because you got a good ride. And then you ask how I am. All right, take it from the top. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you?
You know, the last time I brought up how companies were going bankrupt, you gave me a hard time. So I'm no longer bringing up bankrupting companies.
You're just figuring out the dynamic on this podcast now at episode 15.
Yeah, right.
Dan gives Sage a hard time. What? It took 14 episodes for him to figure this out, everybody. By the way, you're allowed to give me a hard time as well. I can take it as well as I can give it.
You know, I'm not as witty as you, my friend. That is your department. Yeah.
Well, that works out pretty well for me.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
All right. Well, if neither of us has any details on how we're doing, we can go right into our gratitude to our listeners and excellent comments that we received on our last episode. So the episode we're talking about is number 13, which was the 5 most important mountain bike skills to advance your riding, clarified halfway through the episode.
That's right.
It was a lot of fun debating it. I thought we came up with a really good list and a ton of comments, ton of feedback. So thank you everyone for writing in. That's exactly what we had in mind for all of our podcasts. And it's really great when we get one of these topics that's just like totally opinion based. So let us know what you think. And then we're also going to be talking about 2 RNL Ride and Laugh hot takes that Sage put together. The top 5, which if you haven't seen it, has a chalkboard graphic in it, which I loved. I thought that was so cool. Really cool. You. And then he did a whole hot take on number 6, the second thumb, which is ratcheting. And that also got a lot of feedback. So before I get into the feedback, I want to have a couple of clarifications on all 3 of these episodes. Okay. First off, you may not tease me, but I'm going to tease myself here. I called the endo turn an enduro turn. And I didn't just do it for that episode. I've been doing it for the past 8 years because I thought it was called an enduro turn. Why I thought that, I have no idea. Enduro is a type of race, which we'll be talking about soon. It's a type of bike that's used in a type of race. It's not a type of turn. The endo turn makes much more sense because Sage, explain what an endo turn is. I don't know if we actually really explained it.
Yeah. An endo turn is when you're able to. Well, you don't actually have to use your brake. I was about to say you use your front brake, but you don't actually have to use your front brake. But it's basically lifting your back tire and swinging it to the left or to the right. And I usually use my brake, and I think most people do in most situations. But if you're on a fast downhill, for instance, you might not touch your brake. You'll just swing out the back tire, and you'll use this.
You can do it with a shift of weight. You can use it with a shift of weight.
That's right. That's right. And so you'll use this to make a sharp turn or to get around an object. So the more that you start to ride, you'll start to pick up nuances like how your front tire tracks differently from your back tire. And so what you can do is to get your back tire in line with your front tire, you would do an endo turn and then line up your 2 tires. So I find it really handy. I use it all the time. Whether I need it or not, I use it all the time. And yes, I have noticed that you have been calling it an enduro turn, and I just never corrected you.
Just like, I'll just wait until he says it publicly a ton on the record. And then I'll say something. When I saw it on the chalkboard, and I was like, wait a second. I saw it on the chalkboard on the RNL hot take. If you haven't seen it, and I say this every week, subscribing to the YouTube channel, even if you're listening only, subscribing to the YouTube channel with the alarms on is worth it because Sage puts out these 3 to 5 minute hot takes, which are excerpts from the podcast on YouTube, and the editing is fantastic. You get a lot of video on it. You get to see our beautiful mugs. You know what I mean? Like we're putting a lot of time into which hat we're going to wear when we get on here. I mean, the least you could do is watch for a couple of minutes. Look at that brim. Perfectly rounded brim on Sage's hat, of course.
Hey, yes, of course.
All right. So the endo turn, which is now correct nomenclature. And then the other one thing I wanted to bring up was from our commenter of the month, maybe of the year so far, Zan, over at Splooshed MTV.
Yes.
Pointed out that the move that you were talking about, the counter steer skid drift move, is called a Scandinavian fleck, which is also called a Scandi. And there's a lot. And we even had, I know Sean, who builds our pump track, he was saying how there's different names for all these different things, and there's so many different names. And so maybe we'll get into just like mountain bike vocabulary one day and just go through a list of names. We should bring a person on who's not a mountain biker and just start throwing words at them and be like, what do you think this is?
That'd be a great idea.
What's a Scandinavian fleck? You know?
Right. Yeah.
I know a few people who are mountain bikers. We'd have to get someone on who's got a good sense of humor. That's for sure. So,
yeah.
All right. Talking about the episode, the top 5, so much awesome feedback. Brian on a bike, a ton of awesome feedback, and someone that we really respect that Sage is ridden with. Check out the Allaire video. Sage is riding with Brian there, and awesome rider. And he talks about log overs should be in there over the J-hop, and that he feels like that learning how to put that front wheel onto an obstacle and then shifting your weight to get over it is much more important than a hop. You know, so again, this is the debate. Look, you're taking a victory lap here. I see your face. You're taking a victory lap because Brian says that he agrees with you doesn't mean that this is the consensus. You know what? Forget it. I'm done. This one's, now you're really going to get excited because I know you saw the comment, but he also thought that our honorary mention, number 6, that was just earned the thumb in the ratchet.
Yes.
And the ratcheting skill, Brian moved to number 1. He thought the ratcheting was the most important skill to have because it sets up the pedal kick for log overs and gets yourself out of trouble and tack. And it's the track stand. You know, and he's a trials guy. So I just think the breadth of opinion on this is really cool.
Yeah. That's 2 for.
What are you saying? You're
2 that's 2 for
0.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, buddy. I'm keeping count.
Okay. All right. I like how this podcast started with you not ever giving me a hard time, and then just immediately launches into you giving me a hard time. I could take it. That's all right.
Okay. All right.
Josh at Slanted Ground, one of our favorite dudes, also talks about, he says, bike body separation he had in his top 5, which neither of us did. He has the ratchet in there. He has line choice. And then he has something, and we had talked about all those, but he has something that we didn't have at all, which was the drop/roll to safety. So a failing technique. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's top 5. I don't know if we want to go into our ride saying, how do I roll out of this fall?
Yes,
but it is a really good skill to know how to do. Like if you're mountain biking, you should know how to kind of tuck and roll, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know what though, Danny? I mean, I guess it depends on if you're clipped or not clipped, 1. And 2.
Yeah, but we get out of those clips fast.
We do. But for us, it's not about how to fall, but where to fall. Oftentimes, we're doing the tech. And so we're just surrounded by rocks. And oftentimes when I start to fall, I'm not looking for, can I roll out of this? I'm looking for, hey, is there a soft spot that I'm going to take the least amount of damage? Yeah. So,
but we saw Stick famously. You get to put this video in now. If you're watching on YouTube, we saw Stick famously botch a drop at Rocky Ridge, roll. And before he's even standing up, he's declaring, no big deal. We were like, kind of looked like a big deal, but he just wanted us to know, no big deal. He got up, he did it again. Stick's the man. So no big deal has become like Stick's motto, I would say. Like, well, not his motto. That's what we say to him.
Yeah. So you know what? That was actually really kind of him because he knew that we were recording. And
Yes.
our instinct is to immediately take our hand off the record button. And so by him saying that immediately, we were able to continue to record this hilarious incident. Yes.
Your instinct is to stop. Your instinct, which is kind of surprising, as the kind, compassionate person that you are, despite your YouTube channel, your instinct is to immediately check on the rider, stop recording, and run to the rider. I'll record all the way through that shit. I want to get, I mean, what's another couple of seconds? You know what I mean? Like, let's get the footage.
That's right.
You can always tell who recorded because I'll hold it for the end of the crash. All right, Sean at Sticks and Stones, who definitely listened because I told him we talk about you in this one because he designed my pump track, and love Sean. And then he had all those great comments. I was like, dude, you should be a writer for the podcast. He had too many things for me to get into, but one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that we took the manual out right away. Yeah, and we did. Sean's like, no, the manual should be in the top 5. He uses it for log overs, punch ups, and to smooth out trails. He said he's either jumping. This is the kind of rides that he does, but he's either jumping or looking to manual. And so I was wondering if the way that we use the ratchet or the pedal kick is he's constantly manualing. And I bet you if you can do that, I would think that would add a lot of flow to your ride.
You know what though, Danny? Let me say this. Our list was really about going from an intermediate to advanced, and Sean is definitely an advanced rider. And I think our point was like, everything on our list was like things to advance your riding, not right. And the things that Sean is talking about,
the
like
manual was useless.
Into something.
You said the manual was useless.
I did say that.
You were like, let's take manual out. It's useless. And then, Sean doesn't know what he's doing. And I was like, dude, why? You don't even know Sean's comment. You don't even know that he was going to say that yet.
Yes.
No, you're right. Okay. In the context of what we're talking about to advance the riding, if you do top 5 overall skills, but we took it out pretty quickly, and we took it out with prejudice. We were like, definitely.
Yeah,
manual's
we did.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if, I talked about, should I start manifesting learning how to do a manual, as if it'll just magically come to me if I just think about it. But after reading Sean's description of how he uses it, I was like, I think I kind of want to know how to do that.
Yeah,
I know. That sound really cool. That's like if you're using it on the trail, because we didn't think anyone was using it on the trail, and Sean's like, au contraire. Yeah. So, I mean, he doesn't speak like that. He's not French. No. All right. I'm not even done. We still have more people. Logan sent some awesome feedback. He had like a whole different list. And so let's keep it in the context of 5 skills to advance your riding. He has fitness as a skill. Everything's more fun with fitness.
Okay.
I don't know if you would call that a skill, but certainly a solid point. Body control, cornering. And then he talked about, and this is what I thought was really interesting, because he's a trail builder, and he was talking about cornering and drifting and strauping, which is similar to flicking, but he was saying that, no offense as a trail builder, if you're drifting, he said dragging brake through a berm or corner is different, then you're making the turn harder. But if you're using brake control and drifting, then in a turn, that as a trail builder, he doesn't mind that. So I don't know if that means it doesn't really damage the trail, because it's different when everyone's doing it in the same exact spot, right? That causes the braking bumps. And if you're just dragging brake, but if you're actually know what you're doing, maybe it doesn't damage the trail as much. So you're still moving dirt around, but maybe he just doesn't mind, because look, hey, if you can do it, cool.
That's true.
But definitely cool perspective from someone who's working, putting a lot of time on building trails.
Yeah, shout out Logan.
Any of these subjects, listener, that we're talking about that you want, if you want to comment on the top 5 or any of the new top 5 that we mentioned, if you think drifting should be in there or manuals, let us know in the YouTube comments or rideandlaugh1@gmail.com. And then any other comment, I'm getting Gmails in the Gmail. We're on the YouTube. You can just say, hey, can you guys talk about this? Can you guys talk about this? I'm curious about this. Would this make an interesting pod? Or I just want to know. And so there was another listener who was just talking about, he heard that we talked about having kids, and he's got really young kids right now. And hey, what did you guys do to balance that? How did you guys keep on riding? And as I'm writing, I'm like, this could be an episode for people that are interested. So let us know if you got a young family, if you want to hear how we navigated that and how well it worked.
Yeah, right. Looking at me.
I was like, and one of us was successful, but it wasn't the mountain biking. It wasn't the mountain biking.
Shots fired.
It wasn't the mountain biking. Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. We'll move on. Unless Sage, unless you want to lie down on that couch behind you, and we can really get into it.
That's right. A therapy session.
Do a little therapy session. Slap therapy.
That's right. Throwback.
All right. So our ride last week, we got a ride together. It's been super rainy here in the Northeast. And there was a brief window of non-rain, and we grabbed it. We went to Mount Penn, which everyone that's been listening knows that's our favorite riding spot in Pennsylvania right now. And it's got all rock trails available if you know where they are, and we do. And so we did a ride. I'm coming off a recovery week where I didn't work out at all. And Sage is like peaking in single speed form. And you took the single speed to Mount Penn, which is on a rocky ride, which is just not an easy place to ride a regular bike. And you crushed it, man. Like over 2,200 feet of climbing and all rocks. And you were riding the tech, and you were smooth and flowing and powerful on that bike. I mean, we haven't done our hardtail episode yet, but boy, are you getting some ammunition for the benefits of riding a hardtail. Tell us a little bit how you felt on Saturday.
Man, you're absolutely right. This is, I guess, my fourth or fifth ride on the single speed at this point. And man, I'm feeling stronger than ever. I mean, I finished that ride. I could have kept going. I was feeling that good. So that was nice to see, because the first two rides I was really struggling. And it just shows you how different single speeding is to, even just a regular hardtail, but certainly to a full suspension. You don't realize how much, I don't want to say lazy. Lazy isn't the right word, but I'll say that.
No, not with mountain biking.
Yeah. But I'll say that. Yeah. Yeah, right. But
lawn mowing.
You do have to pay. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, right. Riding mowers. But you do have to pay attention more, and you have to work the bike more. And on the single speed, not only are you working the bike more, but you're also working your body more. And that took a really long time to get used to. But man, I'm feeling really good. I'm coming into form. So much so, Dan, that once I get my full suspension, no matter what that is, I think I want to still ride my single speed at least once a month, just to keep this fitness. I don't know if you call it fitness, but just to keep these muscles alive. I don't know how it's going to affect me when I come back, but I assume it's going to be only to my benefit, right?
Oh yeah, you're going to be so strong, and also you're riding so fast on the hardtail, and an old geometry hardtail with very little suspension. And I'll tell you, I was behind you on a bunch of those climbs, which for as long as I could be, because you have to go a certain speed, and on the single speed, there's just no choice. And I wasn't going to stand on my full suspension to try to catch you, but I would be behind you for half of the climb, 3/4 of the climb. I would try my best, and your lines were just divine, like heavenly. Your eyes are so far up, and you always pick good lines, but on the single speed, it was like you were finding like little highways in between rock gardens.
Right,
I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this line before. I mean, if I could hold your tire, I was getting the benefit of these incredible lines, which I think you just start instinctively picking more and more. It just becomes so much more necessary with the single speed. So All right. Well, what we wanted to talk about today is we're heading into race season, mountain bike race season, as well as I'm sure road race season, but we're not talking about road racing. We talk about mountain bike racing. And this is probably going to be a lot of questions for the listeners, because Sage and I do not pretend to be experts in mountain bike racing, but we do have some experience. we have done some racing and we know some racers. And we thought we would talk about some of the different race formats. We want to get some feedback on who's interested in racing and what kind of racing you're doing. And then we'll kind of explain why we don't race anymore. And if we were to race, what might be interesting. So I have the type of mountain bike races that I came up with off the top of my head. Sage, let me know if I missed some. I know there's a ton of specialty stuff. So I have cross country, or XC as it's known. And then within cross country, there's a million different types.
That's right.
The cross country races are getting a little bit more difficult, at least at the pro level, a little bit more technical. But for the most part, it's fitness. There's bike skills in there for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily super, super technical, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then we have downhill races, which is it's just a downhill bike. They're pointed downhill the whole time, and it's just it's a timed race. So cross country is a group start. Downhill would be a timed start.
That's right. Yeah.
And then there's enduro. Why don't you explain what enduro is? I feel like that's the most popular one right now, or one of the most popular ones.
I would argue both the XC and enduro are probably tied.
Yeah.
Yeah. The enduro is a really interesting one in that the timed portions are only the downhills, but you have to make it to each checkpoint in time. So even though they don't time your climb up to the next stage, what they call stages, you can't take all day to get to the next stage. So there is a timed component in the sense that you do have to make it to the next stage in time. So
and
the way that enduro, that's right.
You can't get a ride, or a left.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to pedal there. Yeah.
So the enduro race is going to have anywhere between like 3 to 5, maybe even 6 stages, and it's all in one day.
Could you take a trail bike and race enduro?
Absolutely. You could take any bike and race enduro. I think that's what's so awesome, and each enduro race is going to have different characteristics. The one at Birdsboro, it had some jumps and drops in it, but they were optional. So I could have literally raced my single speed there. I wouldn't want to, but you could. You didn't have to do any of these things. And I think that's what makes an enduro race pretty unique. You don't need a specific bike. Whereas on a downhill bike, a downhill race, you really do need a pretty heavy duty bike. Yeah.
You're not entering into a downhill race unless you have a downhill bike. Maybe an enduro bike.
Enduro, right. Yeah.
So what's really been cool about the enduro racing is because you have to ride the bike up to the top, they have to make it go as fast as possible on the downs and then also be able to pedal to the top. So it still has to have a lot of pedal efficiency. And so the enduro bikes and the trail bikes have really started to kind of overlap. There's a huge overlap there. You can definitely go more trail bike or more enduro, like heavy, way more travel or way less travel. But there's a huge crossover now of enduro bikes that are just trail bike worthy. So we'll see what Sages ends up getting, because you're so locked in on the 27.5 wheels and the brands that you like. There are a lot of times we've seen some that are trail bikes, but we're seeing a lot of enduro bikes too. And you really don't feel like you need that much travel. And I don't think you do. Watching you ride that single speed, you definitely don't need that much travel.
Right.
But I'd be curious to see what you did with it.
Yeah. More than the travel, Danny, I'm just more excited to get into the geo. Honestly, I would be fine with the same amount of travel, but having that little bit slacker. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I would love that.
Yeah. You would be really good on an aggressive down country. A trail bike would be money for you. So, okay. Back to racing. So we're not going to talk about gravel. We're not going to really talk about cyclocross. Those are different types of bikes. There's also dual slalom, which is kind of a specialized downhill race. That's if anyone's done dual slalom, I know there's dual slalom courses at Blue Mountain, and I don't know if there's one at Mountain Creek, but they're there. I don't know if you've done a dual slalom race, let us know. And if you're interested in learning more about it, it looks like fun. It looks like a lot of fun. You line up right next to each other. And this is essentially the same track, but it's all curvy. It looks really cool. Yeah. I bet you would be really good at that because you're really good at cornering.
Way. No, I would not be able to focus. Dude, you're literally right next to the person you're racing against. That's got to be so...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my brain would be everywhere. I don't know if
we're
I
not
could do
talking
it,
about it. We're talking about it a lot, but let us know. Let us know if you've done one of those, or if you've ridden the course, or if you raced a friend on it. You know, it looks really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And then so I would say within the cross country XC race world, there's all these different varieties that you and I have kind of seen and maybe dabbled in. And that would be your multi-day stage races. There's single day mega races. There's which is like a 24-hour race or a 12-hour race or just a huge race. And then there's multi-sport, so that's obviously your, running and swimming if you're also doing that. And
yeah, you know what, Danny? Not only are there all these disciplines, within XC, but within all of the races, every discipline that we've talked about, from the downhill enduro to XC, each one of those are also broken up to either by age, by gender, by sometimes even bike. I mean, sometimes these XC races will have single speed divisions. And then yeah. So, you have your age brackets, it's usually a 10-year gap, so it's like 20 to 30, 30 to 40, typically somewhere in there. But then within that, you'll have like single speed masters, so there's all these different categories. So if you are looking to get into racing, you don't necessarily have to worry about going against pros. The pros are going to be racing against the pros. They'll have Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, all these different classes. And then that's going to be broken up into age groups. So you'll be able to find a nice little niche. And again, this is going to depend on how big the race is. If it's a much smaller race, you might not have as many categories. But if the race is big enough, who knows? I mean, you might be racing against just like 5 or 6 people, or it could be like 30 or 40. You don't know. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's worth trying for sure, at least once.
Okay, well, we're going to get into the benefits of racing. Do you want to talk about races that you've done first? Should we share a little bit of our race experience just real briefly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty short list for me. I only did XC racing, and I did it for a very short time. And I realized very quickly that racing was not really something that I wanted to get into. But yeah, I raced Cat 2. Was not very good at it. As strong as a mountain biker as I think I am, I did not race well. And I think there's a different mentality. There's a different
for sure
strategy, I could not get that strategy, and we'll get into that stuff, but what kind of racing have you done?
This was a long time ago too. Both of us are talking about very long time ago. Since you and I have been riding together, I think maybe I did some of those multi-sport races in the very beginning, but we've been riding together for 15 years or so, right? And I don't know that I knew you to race. Maybe in that first year I met you or something like that. So we're talking about 15, 16 years ago. Yeah. I did some cross country races also, and I remember it was a full suspension 26-inch bike. So that's how long ago it was. Yeah. And I did Escape from Grenade, which I was told was a really cool course in Delaware. Back then, I used to love like white clay and all that flow. And Grenade, they only opened it up for the race. And so the guy who owned the bike shop I went to, Kevin, was like, "Yeah, you should do this race. You get to ride this place." And so I did it, and it rained the day before, and it was just like a mud fest. And I think the race, I mean, it wasn't that much fun. I finished it, but the race ended up probably costing me like $300 or $400 in parts because I got so muddy. If I could find a picture of it, it was ridiculous. And then when my kids were younger and I had a dog, I would trail run. And it's something I actually was just saying on the Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail when the younger guy, I'm presuming, was asking how we did it with kids. Is one of the things I did was I went for trail runs because you can get out in nature on a trail run for 30, 40 minutes and really get exhausted. And for me, I had some trails that were nearby. And so you still get outside, you still get a run. But I got into trail running, and enough that I was like, I'm pretty good at trail running and I'm pretty good at mountain biking. Let me try some of these multi-sport. And so I did probably like maybe 4 or 5 duathlons, off-road duathlons. So it would be a 5K trail run and then like a 10-mile mountain bike ride and then or race and then another 5K run on the back end, which is always the worst part. And then I did those and I enjoyed it. And then I decided maybe I should try a triathlon. And so then I started training in the pool at my gym, and I did one off-road triathlon. I did it at Big Bear. I swam in that lake. It was gross. But I would think I was the last one out of the pool too. But I made up time on the bike and on the run. I ended up finishing second in my age class on that one. So some definitely some fun. And so we'll talk about the benefits of the races. And I would say that definitely the community and, you know, you're hanging out with mountain bikers, right? So
for
that's
sure.
a big part. If you're new to an area or if you're competitive and your friends are doing it, or if you're looking for people to ride with that are similar speed, right? You're not going to find people with more speed and skill than the people that are in your division. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Speaking of division, one of the benefits that I found was just kind of seeing where I stacked up. You know, I didn't start racing until probably my second or third year of riding. And you just have no idea where you stack up in the mix. Yeah. And for me, I do have a competitive streak, and I just kind of wanted to know where I was. And this seemed like a really good opportunity to do that. As it turns out, you know, I was absolutely terrible at racing, so I don't know what that did for me in terms of figuring out where I lined up. But yeah, that was kind of neat. That was kind of neat to see where, you know, your fitness level was.
It's cool when you're training. So you and I have this kind of unique relationship where we train hard because we want to be able to be really strong and ride really well on our group rides, which is oftentimes just you and me or you, me and Stick.
Yeah.
But you know, fitness is a big part of kind of our ethos. And if you were finding that you need motivation to get fit, then put a race on your schedule.
Yeah.
And
that's a really good
see
point.
what happens. Test yourself. So, you know, that's an interesting way to motivate yourself. Or if you've just been working really hard and you feel like you're strong, if you think you're top 20%, you know, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Top 20% of overall skill. When I say top 20%, the Sage and I are top 21, top 22%. But I think maybe we're 19%. Sage thinks we're around 20. What do you think? We're top 30%?
I don't know, man. It's hard to quantify, man. We know so many strong riders, you know, it's hard to think that we're up there, you know, but then, you know, sometimes we ride with other people. That's true. Yeah. That's true. But I mean, you and I, we push really hard. And I think that's the point that you're trying to make. We rarely get to a situation where we're not able to keep up. It's usually the other way around. Yeah. So I think that's where you come up with
I'm not saying our fitness is top 20%. I'm saying overall, you know, like you want to get the strongest guy in the XC race, but then like, let's take him to Mount Penn and see if he wants to follow us down some tech lines and some slabs.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. The kind of riding that you and I do is pretty unique. I mean, it's
not conducive to racing. Yeah.
It's really not. Yeah. I think what makes our riding really unique is that we push ourselves as hard on the downhill as we do on the uphill. Like the same amount of pride goes into that and joy. Like I absolutely love a good technical climb. Now I'm not a fan of like, you know, you and I will go to like a place like Michaud or take Mount Penn even, you know, like we'll see guys and girls take the road or the gravel up. No way, man. You and I are hitting. Is there single track available? Yes, we'll hit it. And even if that means hiking our bike sometimes, we just love a good technical climb.
Listeners, riders, let us know. Do you like a good technical climb? You know, what do you prefer? Do you prefer downhill? Do you prefer climbing? Do you prefer cross country? If you were to do one of these races, what race would you do? What races are you doing? You know, what's your race experience? We're interested. So bring it into the comments on the YouTube, RideandLaugh1 at Gmail. And if you've ridden with Sage and I, what percentage of mountain bike riders do you think that we would fall under? No, you don't have to comment on it.
Please don't. That could be very depressing. Yeah, please. That could be very depressing. Bottom 50?
Yeah, you losers are definitely, like lower 75. I don't know. I mean, you guys seem like nice, but I don't want to hurt your feelings, but
you probably should get an e-bike. Yeah.
Yeah. I know why you guys don't race, because you're slow. I've seen you guys.
Yeah.
Well, we do know like when we rode with WSO9 guys, right?
Yeah.
Rich and Gary had become really good friends through racing.
Through racing.
And
yeah.
Rich and Puff had become good friends through racing. So definitely making friends. I don't know. I mean, maybe you make enemies also. If you have like a rival.
Yeah, you know, another benefit, Danny, is being able to see new places, ride at new places. So if you've heard or seen this place on Strava and you're like, I wonder what this is like, do a race. It's a great way to get out there. The courses are typically marked out. They'll be marked out the day before. And you might even be marked out a couple days before, depending. And that goes for Enduro and XC. So this is a great way to just go out and pre-ride the course, get to know the trails. You're not going to get all of them, but you'll get a good majority of them. And
the trails
I just think that's fact. Yeah.
You don't need a map. You don't need your trail forks out.
It's a home run.
Just go and ride. Now, I do think that was much more of a draw before trail forks and Strava heat maps, which we talked about last week. Now we can create such a route, or you can even like recreate the race routes and put it onto your bike computer. However, just being able to go and ride and not think about it at all. And if you like racing anyway, then that's a great way to do that. You're testing your skills. You're testing your fitness. What about winning stuff? Does anybody care about that at our level?
I mean, and I think that's the problem, right? At our level, you're looking at what, Cat 1, Cat 2. What are you winning, tires, right? It's really not that much until you get into the pro. That's when they start winning cash, and even then, that's no way to make a living. So I don't know that. I think it's more about the accomplishment than the winning the prizes. But then again, listen or tell us, because we don't win anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's true. We don't win anything.
We don't care about prizes. Yeah. Oh, have you won? No, we have not.
What's the What's the coolest thing that you've won before? Or what's the coolest thing that you've seen as a prize? Does that motivate you at all? Does a prize motivate you at all? I think the race strategy can be fun if you're an XC and you have a strategy laid out on your calories and when you want to push and when you want to lay off, and I think that could be kind of interesting. I hear them talk about race strategy and Trainer Road podcast all the time. The community support, cheering, fans cheering, that's got to feel pretty good, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it does feel awesome. I remember that part of it, and that was a really exciting part. And people you don't even know, they're just like, yeah. You're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And then, for me, like my family would come at the time. My kids were really young, and so like, my little girls are there cheering for daddy, and afterwards, just feeling a sense of accomplishment. It could be a reason to travel. You could have races in different places, right?
Yes.
People enter into some of these like really iconic races, like a Leadville. Chris Garland really wants to do Leadville. Chris Garland, our buddy Chris, who is a really strong rider and racer.
Yeah, super strong.
And he got into one of the Bentonville mega races. He's doing it in November, I think. Chris, you can comment on what it was. I forget which one it is, but we'll be talking about it. So, but if you finished like a Leadville 100, in mountain biking, that's an iconic race. It's not something I really wouldn't want to do it, but that's an iconic race.
It's a lot of gravel.
It's a lot of gravel. Lance Armstrong, I think, competed in it one year, and he's a roadie, obviously. So, yeah, kind of point made. If I were to race in something, I would want to race in something that needed some mountain bike skill more than that. But however, that is a race at elevation that goes to higher elevation. It's absolutely brutal fitness wise. Yeah. And then you do need some serious descending skills coming down on that mountain, because you're coming down the same trail that people are going up, and it's very gravelly and very loose. So I'm sure the better your downhill skills are, the better you're going to do on that. And there's other races like that, and some of these stage races are also like that. So but a reason to travel, and then which we also talked about was bragging rights, which I just kind of mentioned, right? I did this. I did this stage race. I did this 100-mile race. I did this 24-hour race.
Yeah.
Any other benefits that you want to mention before we get into what we would say the drawbacks are?
No, I was going to do a fancy segue, but since you just went ahead and did a normal segue,
Oh, no, let's
go
hear
ahead.
it. No,
Let's
fancy,
rewind.
fancy.
Let's rewind.
This is the fancy segue? I'm so disappointed.
No. Okay, the fancy segue was, Dan, you had mentioned you were so tired. What are some other drawbacks to racing? See.
Oh, that's good.
That was good.
It's good.
That was good.
No,
I was working on it.
Don't second guess yourself. It was good. I liked it. Let's use it. We'll edit out the first part and we'll only use the fancy part. Yeah. So you got to pay to race. There's entry fees. Mountain biking's already expensive. One of the things that's usually free, unless you have to pay $5 a park someplace, are the trails. So now, now you gotta, instead of just going out and riding on Sunday, you gotta put an entry fee in, and then, you're part of the organization. So are you going to be there all day? You're also not picking the time that you race.
For me,
what do you think?
I didn't like that it would take 2 of my days, because I was one of those people that would like to prepare. So I would actually pre-ride the course, the day or the weekend before.
Yeah. Sure.
And so now you're dedicating 2 rides to a place. I don't know. It just goes back to what you were saying, is not being able to ride what you want to ride. But if you want to be good at racing, if you want to take it seriously, then you'll probably want to pre-ride it,
Yeah, excellent point.
I don't know.
You're totally right. Yeah. I would think that someone who has ridden the trail before would have an advantage over someone who has not. But if you love racing and you're working and you're putting all this effort into training and, maybe riding a road bike or doing trainer road or outside training with a power meter and, and you want to see how fast you are on race day, I totally get that.
It's not just XC either. It's all the disciplines. Downhill, enduro, XC. They all have pre-riding. You have to be fit, but they're all pre-riding too. You go to the downhill, even at the pro level, those guys and gals are there weeks before the actual race. The enduro, the Birdsboro Enduro, they actually lined up the course a week in advance. They announced what the trails were, and people were riding that the weekend before. So it's not just XC. I mean, no matter what you want to do, if you want to be competitive, you're going to have to do that.
Yeah. And anywhere you race, there's going to be locals there, and they're going to know all the good lines. So if you're riding it completely blind, that would be a pretty serious disadvantage, I think.
Yeah.
Another thing about racing, which you might call a drawback, could also be a benefit, but I just think for the type of person that we are is the crowd, and there's traffic. So there's traffic getting in, and everyone's got to park, and there's a lot of people around. And, part of mountain biking to me, a lot of times is getting out in the woods and you're just kind of out there. And certainly in an XC race, there's a lot of people on the trail that, you're racing. It's not a relaxing day. This is a big day. You're going all out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people around. So if you're a social person and you love seeing everybody, and we have friends like that, then great. But if you don't really want all the traffic and the crowds and the booths and waiting in line to get your number and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, Danny, can I get ugly? Can I get ugly?
Yeah, you've already been fancy. Let's get ugly.
I'm not a negative person, but I'm going to drop a pretty negative bomb. I did not like some of the personalities that I met in the racing, including my own. I didn't like the type of person that I became when I started racing. And I also didn't like running into other people, specifically people that didn't get race etiquette. And so typically when you race, you can just, as you come up behind them, you say, hey, coming up on your left or coming up on your right. What's supposed to happen is that person's supposed to move over and kind of let you pass. I can't tell you how many times I've come up on a person, hey, on your left or on your right, in a very polite way. And it's almost like they're not even listening. It's almost like you didn't say anything at all. And I have to tell you, it's the most frustrating and kind of rude. It's kind of rude because it's like, clearly I'm up on you, you and just move over, just move over. What's the big deal? And that would really get under my crawl. And that's happened to me quite a few times because I would suck at the beginning. I just didn't know how to plan for that beginning. So what would happen is all these people would pass me because I didn't get the start right. And now I have to go past people. And then you can only pass so many, you're on single track,
Yeah,
so unless
that's
you
another
get to
thing
a
about
wide,
mountain bike racing. It's really hard to pass. It's really hard
really
to pass.
is.
And
Yeah.
it sometimes, competition can bring out the worst in some people.
Yes, it does.
I remember being on both sides of that. If someone came up behind me and said, on your left, on your right, I would happily pull over. I did not want to hold up someone who was legitimately faster. Then you would kind of have those moments where you're playing cat and mouse with someone and you seem like you pass, they pass, you pass, they pass. And so are they really that much faster? Certainly if someone passes you, then you try to hold, I would always try to hold their wheel, let me see if you're, so I guess there's some strategy in there and not letting people pass. But if someone's definitely coming up on you and wants to pass. And I remember that. I remember saying, on your left or trying to pass someone and not being able to, and especially in the tech, which when I was racing, I wasn't necessarily the fittest or the fastest, but I was always good at riding tech because that's what we always did. And so people would be like dabbing and walking their bikes and I'd be like, I can ride this, like get out of the way.
Move.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So, competition brings out maybe some of our darker parts of our personality for sure. And I love mountain bikers are so awesome. Mountain bikers are so cool that I just don't want to mess with that at all. I'm not interested in an angry, competitive mountain biker. Like the people I ride with and the people I meet in my bubble are awesome and kind and supportive and awesome. I said that twice because mountain bikers are awesome. So if you're listening to this, we think you're awesome. You're a mountain biker. You're cool.
You know what? I totally forgot that we didn't mention in enduro racing, it's individual. So we should clarify that. Like it's much like a downhill race. However, unlike a downhill race, it is timed, but unlike a downhill race, they go off in increments of I think it's 30 seconds to a minute. So even though you're racing against yourself, if you're fast enough or slow enough, there will be an instance where you might have to pass somebody. So it does happen. That's all I'm saying is that issue could also happen.
But let someone go every 30
too.
seconds or every minute. Yeah. So you could catch up to someone in front of you or someone could catch up to you. Yes.
You absolutely. I've seen it. At the Birdsboro race. And again, just move over. If someone's creeping up, I mean, it's so dangerous on an enduro course too, because people are flying and it's usually pretty technical. Just move over.
That's a little bit different than cross country, because if someone's catching up to you and they started a minute behind you, then without a doubt they're much faster than you.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm definitely not winning. This person's a minute faster than me already, so I'm definitely not winning. So let me just pull over here and I'll just enjoy the rest of the ride. And but look, when we start racing, that competitiveness takes over sometimes, and just know yourself. If that's going to be ugly, then be aware of that. And let's have our better nature take over.
We're coming up against the time here, so maybe we should kind of switch over to. I'm kind of curious to know why you stop racing.
Okay, so I'm going to read through the list that I have here of reasons that I think that we no longer race, and so I don't want to put words in your mouth. So go ahead and correct anything that I say, but because it's coming up on a longer podcast, which. That's what happens.
Well,
we
love
talking bikes.
Don't rush it now. Yeah, we love you.
We love talking bikes.
Don't rush it. Yes. Yes.
We always go along. I can't help it. And Sage usually edits out. Maybe we'll start a Patreon with all the stuff that you edit out.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
The podcast is almost always 10, 15, 20 minutes longer than it's actually released. There's a lot of gold out there, people that you don't even know you're missing.
You don't even know.
I have a feeling Sage is putting all the good stuff in, but listeners are like, this is the good stuff? Yeah, and I definitely don't want to hear the other stuff. Oh, wait, it gets worse? Yeah, I'll pay extra for that, sure. You guys didn't tell me it got worse. Sign me up. No, he's taking out the best stuff and we're going to sell it separately.
That's right.
All right. Here are the top reasons that I would rather just ride with my friends on Sunday morning. We push each other, even though it's not a race. Famous last words. It's not a race, but we're pushing each other. And when you're listening to the podcast and you're hearing us talk about like, dude, you were so strong the other day, like we're doing that all day, all ride. Yo, you are crushing it. And or then we get those moments when you and I are both like in peak physical fitness and we're just destroying for like an hour. We're just riding so hard and sticks often in there, and we're just, I mean, we're just pedaling up and down the mountain, and it feels so good. But we are pushing each other, so it's not a race. But I feel like I want to be fit for those days, and I want to be fit for our trips, so that we can ride as many trails as possible. I am infamous for putting together way too big of a route because I want to add in all the double block trails I could possibly find. And if we connect this and this and this, and we can do it, we can do it. We call them couch muscles because I'm much stronger on the couch than I am on the trail.
Yeah.
On the flip side, though, we can stop riding when we're tired. So if you're having an off day or if you're tired, hey, man, like I want to cut it short a little bit today or take it a little bit easy. We get to ride all the trails and the features that we want. In a race, a lot of times the features might be taped off.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
You know what, Danny? Yeah. Let me piggyback on that because my main reason for not racing anymore is exactly that. When I ride now, I look for those types of features. And oftentimes if you're doing an XC race, all the tech lines, uphill and downhill, are kind of sanctioned off. They'll either have them roped off or whatever. And those are the things that I think I'm actually strongest at. So the things that are going to be an advantage for me in the race, they're taking out. And so it really just becomes about fitness in the XC. And my fitness, I mean, you say we're top 20, but I don't think my fitness is in the top 20. So if you're taking out the things that I'm actually good at, it becomes less interesting to me. And, you know, the Enduro, that's a little bit different. You know, the Enduro has all the features that you and I want, but man, I don't know if I would handle the pressure of being timed and doing that stuff. You know, like I like to, you know me, I like to hit things at my speed, at my time, especially if it's something big and has consequence. And with my competitive nature, I know that would get the better of me and I would probably do something stupid. And that's why I haven't done a downhill or enduro, but enduro is the race that I would probably look to do if I was going to do a race again.
Yeah. See, that's interesting because I feel like while my downhill skills are pretty good, I do feel like what makes me a good all around rider is that I'm also fit. And so I feel like the enduro doesn't necessarily, I know you have to be fit to race enduro or to race downhill. Like you have to be fit for sure. And to be able to hold in the downhill position, strong, you need to be incredibly strong. But the XC fitness is a little bit of a different animal. And I do train for that because I ride the trainer. And so the all around fitness, I think I would want some sort of technical XC course. So that I could have, but there's not that many of those. And I don't know. I'm curious how we would do in all these races. The enduro definitely looks like the most fun.
You think that you would be competitive if it was just a straight up,
I don't know,
white clay, no tech, just to climb up a hill.
Oh, no.
You think you would be competitive? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I know I wouldn't be.
I need tech. No,
you need the tech in the climb.
Yeah, you and I don't ride flow at all. I mean, this is a whole different podcast but we don't really look for flow. We don't ride flow. When we hit it every once in a while because it's going from a tech section to another tech section in between, there's some flow and it's like, it's really fun. That's really fun. But it's just not what we seek out. We seek out tech and then we like jump lines, which we're not very good at, but we're learning. The last one I have, or the last two I have, so we talked about we want to ride the trails that we want. We want to ride the features that we want. I wrote that we prefer progression to speed.
Yeah. I think I would absolutely 100% agree with that.
Would that be a cool T-shirt?
By the way,
progression with the oh my gosh, oversized to speed.
Yes,
right. Progression and the greater than sign than speed.
Yeah.
Ooh. Ride and laugh. Let us know, listener. Would you buy that T-shirt? Do you agree I mean, do we have to make both T-shirts? Speed over progression. You can pick which one you want. You know which one Sage and I'll be riding, but yeah,
you can flip the shirt inside out. Yeah, I love it.
Let us know. Do you prefer progression and sessioning, or do you prefer speed and seeing how fast you can get it done? It kind of goes into last podcast too, with Strava and the segments, so that's kind of interesting. So,
and we weren't always like that, Dan. We weren't always like that. We did a flip. And there are a lot of people that don't
the majority
ride with us
of
now.
our riding. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people don't ride with us now because we made that flip, we're still friends, but we're just into different things. We're into sessioning. We still push really hard. I mean, we push so hard. But we'll stop. We'll stop at a spot for 15, 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour, and just session a feature. And then we're back to riding hard. But if you're not interested in stopping and sessioning, you're not going to enjoy riding with us. That's just what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just what you prefer. So listener, let us know in the YouTube comments, rideandlaugh1@gmail.com. What do you prefer, progression or speed, trail rides with your buddies or racing? Or there's a happy medium in there, I'm sure, as well. And so that was my last point, which is riding with friends is so much fun. Why pay to race with strangers? So, but again, we're not racing. So I feel like I'm skewed a little negative here because my bias is that I love riding on Sunday with you and Stick and anyone that wants to come out with us. But I'm sure that racing has an awesome community also.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to mention, which you didn't really get into, is the youth mountain biking and the team aspect of that. And so I can't be any more encouraging or enthusiastic about youth mountain biking. So if you're younger and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be mountain biking, I should just ride with my friend. No, if you're a young person and you have a chance to be on a mountain bike team, being on a team is awesome. And if you're on a mountain bike team, now you're getting to know all the other riders in your area. You're getting to ride all these different areas. You're riding with other kids that are your age. And getting stronger at that age is awesome. You have coaches. You have mountain bike coaches working with you and riding with you all the time. So I think that the youth mountain biking is awesome. So if you're a younger person and you're listening to this and you have access to a youth mountain bike team, I would say full steam wholeheartedly to go for it and give it a shot, because I think that's a whole different kind of animal than adult racing on the weekends. I feel like if you have a chance to be on a scholastic team in high school or in college, I just think that would be really fun. I would do that 100 times out of 100 if I was younger and it was available, and it's something I'm certainly going to encourage my kids to look at. Whether or not they're passionate for mountain biking is going to be up to them. But if I see a local team, I'm going to be like, that looks pretty cool. If you want Dad to be a coach, I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, let's do it, because that was actually going to be part of my gratitude. Was these youth teams and also trail advocates. There are, if you're a beginner looking to get into mountain biking, if you're young, you, like Dan said, you have these teams that you can join. The one near us is called NICA, but then you also have the fire group, the all girls racing Enduro first, or I forget what the acronym exactly is, but you have all these different avenues to choose from. And that wasn't available to you and I when we were first starting. But in addition to that, if you're an adult, they also, trail advocates will have days where they'll take you out and have skill days, so there's all these different things. And I'm so grateful for that part of our community, that there is a way for you to go out. And this isn't like when you and I were first starting, it was like, how do you learn about mountain? There was no YouTube, right? There was not that many trail advocates. And if there was, they weren't doing the stuff that they're doing today. And it's just incredible. What's out there is absolutely incredible. So thank you to all the coaches that are putting the time out there and getting everybody involved. The young people, or people like us that got started later in their lives, or me, I should say, because you got started early, but I didn't get started until I was in my 30s, and I thank you to all the people that have gotten me from that 30-year-old to this 46-year-old. I've grown a lot, and it's because of those people. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, my mountain bike gratitude of the week is similar in a lot of ways. And last week we rode in the rain, and I was coming off a recovery week, and I slipped on a couple of pieces, different sections. The wood was really slippery, and a couple of small falls, nothing major. And at the end of the ride, we did do a couple of bigger features, nothing outrageous. And you asked if I wanted to do this slab, and I was like, no, because I've fallen on that slab in the rain before. And then you were like, well, do you want to go and do this feature? And I was like, no. And looking back, I'm just like, I'm just looking at my gratitude is just the progression in life and confidence and knowing when to say no, not today, and having that self-confidence to know that I got another ride coming. And looking back, everything when we live with confidence and we believe that everything will work out for the best, and then you look back and you say, yeah, everything really always has worked out for me. So listener, think about that a little bit. Like, everything's worked out for us. And so we should have a little bit of trust that everything's going to work out in what we're doing right now. And so when you wake up in the morning, just trusting that everything's going to work out, everything's going to be okay, and everything's going to happen in the right time and place. And I really believe that. And it's very liberating. And so you're going to have good days and bad days on the bike and off the bike, but just go with the flow and trust that, you got the skills. The skills are in there. I talked about it in the mindset podcast, is that a lot of times it's just moving everything else out of the way so we can access those skills. So hold your head up, be confident, and just love life and know that everything's going to work out. Everything's cool. We're mountain biking. Life's good.
I love it, brother. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, the mountain bike tip is, since we're just talking about racing, and you might get angry at me for this, and that's okay. I'll take it. Learn to, if you are someone that eats during a ride, learn how to eat during a race. And if you're someone like Dan and I, we just focus on hydration. Learn how to hydrate during the race. And so what I mean by that is, when you're racing, it gets so crazy and so hectic that if you are a sugar burner, then you're going to have to figure out how to do that and get your body used to doing that. And if you don't do sugars like Dan and I, then you have to learn how to hydrate. And that might be as simple as setting a timer, like, okay, set your bike computer or watch to, hey, I'm going to take a sip every 10 minutes. Just force yourself to take a sip, because what will happen is, and this has happened to me, I've gotten to the end of the race and I'm cramping out. I'm literally like 5 miles from the finish line, and you get this massive cramp, and you're either cramping because you're a sugar burner and you've run out of carbs, or you're cramping because you have run out of water. You didn't hydrate properly beforehand. So,
or you're not fit enough.
For me, or you're not fit enough. That's true. But a lot of that can be alleviated just by training your hydration and nutrition. So whatever your nutrition practice is, practice that in a race situation before you get to the race. And hydration, also same thing. Practice that. So you're not doing, the key is you don't want to do something for the first time in the race, and just expand on that, right? Don't buy a pair of shoes, new mountain bike shoes, and wear that the first day of the race. It's the same concept. Don't buy a new pair of chamois and the race is the first time you're wearing it. No, nothing first. Train everything that you're going to train in the race beforehand. That way, when you get to the race, you're prepared. That's my mountain bike tip.
Good tips. Good tips. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in racing. There's a lot more in this podcast that we can get into. So listeners, comment in the YouTube, please. If you want to send an email, it's rideandlaugh1@gmail.com. Let us know what races you're doing. Let us know what races you think we should do. We didn't really get into, if we had to do a race, which one we would do or which we would think would be the hardest. But there's more time. There's more podcasts. So, but let us know. Let us know what's the most fun race, and why do you like racing? Why don't you like racing? Any other feedback? Any other subjects that you want us to talk about? We talked a lot about in the beginning about the 5 skills. And so there's just so much interesting stuff. But we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for listening. If you're still listening, you're definitely one of us. Please rate and subscribe on YouTube and on your podcast player. Set us to auto downloads. Set your little alarm bell on YouTube to give you an alert, and comment on the YouTube comments. Helps the algorithm and gets more people listening. So we really appreciate everyone that's listening. We have nothing but gratitude to our listeners. and ride and laugh. We love you.
I'll see you, everyone.